Hey guys, Lawrence Burchett, and this is Reality's Edge. So before we get started today, I'd like to say thank you for all the views, and just remind everybody, hit the thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, share this with your friends and family, and ring the bell to get notified when a new video comes out. Today, I'd kind of like to touch on, it's kind of a controversial subject. The government. And we've talked about the government before, but does the government really have our best interest in mind? Does the government really care about us? And does the government take care of us? So I've heard time and time again, oh, the government would never do that. Oh, the government would never allow that to happen. Things like that. The government will take care of us. The government will protect us. It was said once that if you're willing to trade security or trade liberty for security, you deserve neither one. Now, do they really care about us so? Does any government care about their people? Have you ever just really sat and thought about the kind of atrocities that governments around the world, not just the United States government, but governments around the world, past and present, and likely going to be future too, the atrocities that they've committed against their own people? So let's think about this for a minute. Let's go back about 90 years. Let's look at the area of Tuskegee, Alabama, and what was called the Tuskegee Experiment, or the Tuskegee syphilis study. So I wrote some stuff down. I took some notes because I want to get as much of this correct as I can. And where this actually come from, when I got up this morning, I pulled up Discovery Plus. And I got to looking, and I found a show on there, a documentary about the Edgewood experiments. And it has to do with, in Maryland, it was a military base or military complex, and they did chemical warfare type stuff there. And so that got me thinking about this today. But we're going to start with the Tuskegee syphilis study, or the Tuskegee experiments. In 1932, like I said, about 90 years ago, a group of doctors and scientists got together, and they were made up of doctors from the United States Public Health Service and the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC. And they put a study group together of 600 people. 399 of those had syphilis, and 201 of them didn't. Now, this is where it gets kind of sickening. I mean, really sickening. It was all African American men. And the participants, they were poor people, and they were sharecroppers in the area. They worked on farms, and they didn't have money, not much to speak of. They barely scraped by, and they were promised health care because they didn't have health care, didn't have access to it. But they were deceived by the Department of Public Health, or the United States Public Health Service, and the CDC. They were told that by participating they would have lifelong health care and stuff like that. Now, for years it had been said that they were, given syphilis, but I don't believe that was the case. I believe there were just men that had it, and they were studied. They were studied to see what the effects were going to be. Now, in 1928, in Oslo, Norway, they had already done studies like this. Now, why they felt the need to expand on it, I have no clue, but they did. They thought that it would affect white men differently than black men. It's sickening. It's absolutely sickening. But they, they were not even really. I don't think any of them even really knew they had syphilis. They were led to believe they had something called bad blood, which back then was kind of the excuse for a lot of things. Um, and it was only supposed to last for like 6 months, and it ended up lasting for 40 years, from 1932 to 1972. And they were not, the ones that did receive some sort of treatment, it was just off the wall alternative treatments that didn't do anything. And this is really bad considering by 1947 they had an effective treatment for syphilis. They figured out that penicillin was readily available by 1947, and it was a very common treatment for syphilis, and it worked. But none of the participants of the Tuskegee syphilis study or the Tuskegee experiment were ever given it. They could have, lives could have been saved. But by 1972, 28 people patients died directly from syphilis, and then another 100 died from complications due to syphilis. And that's not even the worst of it. Well, I mean, it might be the worst of it, but the atrocities keep going further. 40 of the men's wives ended up contracting syphilis, and even 19 children were born with congenital syphilis. Uh, that's just one. That's just one example of, will our government or any government, will they do anything? Do they care about us, or are we nothing more than just pawns in some chess game, or guinea pigs to be tested on? Then and it's just it's just sickening. But it was abruptly in 1972. It come to an end when it come out about it. Basically there was a whistleblower come out about it and squealed. Once again, it's just, even the United States government, the atrocities that, how could we were supposed to be the ones that took care of our people. And, look at that. The next topic I wanted to talk about was the Edgewood experiments. And that took place in Maryland here, I'm going to look this up real quick because I didn't get everything written down correctly. It was at the Edgewood Arsenal facility in Maryland. And basically with that, and this is the one I actually, like I said, I got up this morning and looked on Discovery Plus and found this. They were talking about it on this documentary that I was watching, and I thought, this is pretty sick, but this is something that I need to get out there and talk about, not because, it happened, but because, will it happen again? They can say that it won't, but I don't necessarily believe that. The Edgewood experiments, they tested on GIs, military personnel. They tested psychotropic drugs like LSD, PCP, stuff like that, and other chemicals like sarin gas. And they tested the effects on human beings. Now they were all GIs or military personnel, but still, they actually started in 1948, and then they had a volunteer program that started in 1956, where servicemen could volunteer. So that means for 8 years they ran, probably not telling anybody what was actually going on, and then it was abruptly terminated in 1975. Now there have been some. I did some reading about this, and there was a lot of things that it really rang the same as the MK Ultra program with the CIA, where they tested the effects of PCP and stuff like that on, like the CIA did it with college students. They had one part of the MK Ultra program called Operation Midnight Climax, where in San Francisco they actually ran brothels, and the they would have the ladies of the night when they would pick up a John, they would spike his drink with acid or something like that, and then they would run experiments on him while he was, tripping balls, basically. Um, and that kind of thing, that kind of thing went on for years. They even did one on some of their own. The CIA even did on some of their own with Operation Wormwood, where they dosed their own CIA agents. So to think that the government, the United States government or any other government, gives a damn about their people, because I'll guarantee you we're not the only ones that have done this or the only ones that are doing this. But this even makes me wonder as to, with certain diseases, certain epidemic diseases that we've seen in the past, how many of those had their origins in some sort of biological or chemical warfare? It's just one of those questions that I feel like has to be asked. So, that's it for today, guys. I'm going to keep this one kind of short. I don't really want to get too deep into it because I can really see myself getting irritated and really going off on a tangent, and I really don't want to. But look it up, guys. The Edgewood experiments and the Tuskegee experiments, or the Tuskegee syphilis study. And I guarantee you, there's a lot of correlations that can be made with the stuff that the United States Public Health Service and the CDC, and then the United States Army, the Central Intelligence Agency, they've all done it. And who's to say they're not still doing it? Whether it be for mind control or just to see, the best way to effectively, stop opposing forces. Either way, with chemical warfare, it's not supposed to be used anyway. It's not supposed to be used. It's against, that's big war crimes type things. And, really, I think even with this stuff here, I think this, in my opinion, this is war crimes too. But that's neither here nor there, guys. Either way, if you like today's video, give me a thumbs up. Let's just keep marching towards that 100 subscribers so we can get on to a live stream, and let's just keep having some fun here, guys, talking about some stuff. Hit me up with some ideas of some other things that you guys want to talk about, and yeah, just you got my email. I put it at the end of each video, or hit me up in the comments. Either way, guys, do me a favor, especially after this one here. Love yourselves and love each other. Peace out.